What is up, my friends? So today I'm going to do a design critique. So David Awokoya, who is a member of the Design for Developers beta group, submitted one of his designs and asked for it to be critiqued, and he was kind enough to allow me to make a video out of this critique. So not only him, but you as well could potentially learn from this critique. So obviously I do not know the business nor the audience that they are going after. So this is going to be a purely visual critique. I'm not going to go into like the color choices or the font choices or any of the other stuff that can affect the perception of the brand. I'm just going to talk about the layout and the alignment, visual hierarchy, that sort of stuff. So I've briefly glanced at the design, but I've yet to dive into it. So let's jump on the computer and check it out. All right, guys, so let's get started. So just overall, it looks pretty nice. There are a few issues I am seeing, like alignment, spacing, etc. Some visual hierarchy stuff, but overall it's a very nice design. So let's just dive in and see how we can improve this. All right, so first off, let's just take a look at what grid he is using. So he's got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 column grid. I'm not sure why this one's right here, but it doesn't look like everything's quite aligned correctly to it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna clear this grid. Let's make a new one. Let's say we want a margin of, let's say 15% on either side, just 3 columns, and we'll have a gutter of just say 50 pixels. See how that looks. Okay, so this gives us something to work from. Let me create a center point as well. If you guys don't already use the guide extension, it is fantastic. Okay, so now that we got the basic grid system set up, let's take a look. So up top on this header, it looks like he's using a centered navigation, but over here he's got the login and stuff. So it kind of makes it unbalanced a bit. First thing I would do is probably left justify the logo and navigation and then keep the login and stuff over top. But a few things I'm noticing right off the bat is it's not vertically aligned. There's more space on top than there is on the bottom. So first off, I want to fix that. And then also this font size seems relatively large. So let's just clean this up a bit. So I'm going to move the logo to the left, features and rates. Let's see what font he is using. Avenir Next Rounded Pro Demi. So I don't actually have that on my system. So let's see. I think I can use Proxima Nova Soft. That one's pretty similar. Yeah, it's pretty similar for the most part. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just add this other stuff. Let's say how it works. And then FAQs. Then I will delete this one. All right. So yeah, the font size seems a little large. So let's shrink that down. In fact, the logo seems a little large too, but I'll keep that relatively the same size. Okay, so that looks better right off the bat to me. It's not quite vertically centered. Let's bump it up slightly. There we go. That looks better. Maybe one more. Cool. So now let's copy this. Let's do login, and then let's right justify that. So let me bring up the guide. Delete that. So the Get Beeptool, this button right here, first off, let's vertically center it. So I'm just eyeballing this. Okay, so that looks better. The font in here seems rather large. Just gonna say okay to all. Let's shrink that down. I'm going to change this to Proxima Nova Soft. And let's make it a bold version to draw more attention to it. And then let's just center justify it. Make sure it's centered within the button. And then let's just vertically center it as well. Okay, so font size 31. This one is 31.51. Let's just make it match that other one. All right, and then we need to align it. I'm gonna bring up a guide, make sure it's all horizontally aligned as well. There we go. So one thing I noticed is he had it like this, which I see a lot of developers do, a lot of beginner designers and developers actually. they align the buttons to the edge of the text, and that just throws everything off because visually there's still all this white space going past the border. So what I'm going to do is bring that in so the edge of the button itself is within the guides. Cool. All right, so that right off the bat makes it feel a lot more balanced to me because we have, this is obviously a bit longer, but the visual weight of this button helps even it out. All right, so now for the banner. I understand why he laid out the text right here because of this image. He didn't want to cover their faces too much. But when you have an element like this inside of a larger element and it's closer to the bottom, it feels like it's falling. So to fix that, we need to center it vertically. So right off the bat, that feels better to me. But of course, it's covering up their eyes and there's some visual tension created like right here. It's just like too close. So there's a few things we could do. Let's grab this. Let's just play with the image. We could just change the positioning of the image. Obviously, we don't want to cut off their whole face. I think what I would do is I'm just going to grab all of this and bring it down. Let me unlock this stuff. Okay, so let me grab all this, just bring it down for now. We'll clean it up later. And then, all right. So now we have a slightly larger thing to work with. So let's position it right up above. Let's make it slightly larger so it doesn't get cut off. All right. So now we can bring this down to where it's not cutting off their faces. All right. So by bumping up the height of the banner itself, we can still use this image, but we can also vertically center this text to make it not feel like it's falling. All right, so let me add this gradient in. You know, I think I would just do a fill on the entire thing. So I'm gonna make a shape and put it over here. Then I'll just delete that gradient. And then I'm just gonna drop the opacity a bit. There we go. So now the text can be easily readable when laid over top of the image. All right, so the next thing I would do is there's some visual hierarchy issues with this banner because although the font of the Make Every Moment Count is much bigger and it's bold, my eye still gets drawn to the Beeptool's Brings Your Loved Ones Closer to the subtitle because of the white color. The white color just has a lot more contrast compared to this green color. So I think what I would do, let me change that copy real quick. Let's just change this to white. There we go. Let me do the same for the subtitle. And then let's just make sure it's all vertically centered. So I don't think this is pure white, is it? No, it's a slightly off white. Let's try making it pure white, but then drop the opacity a bit. Just very, very slightly. That way, this is the first thing that you look at, and then the next thing. That way, we create some visual hierarchy by making the Make Every Moment Count big, bold, and very high contrast. Then the subtitle, there would be a little less contrast between it. All right, so that looks pretty good. So next, let's move on to this Get on the App section. So first thing is if we pull up the guides again, it's not quite lining up to the guides. So this probably doesn't need to be all caps because it seems like that's the only place. Oh, maybe right here is all caps. Let's see what it looks like. Just use Proxima Nova soft and let's do a bold. So we could probably spread these out a bit. And it doesn't look like it's quite vertically centered. Like if I zoom in, there's more space on bottom than there is on top. So I will just vertically center that. Move it down about 4 pixels. Let's do the same for the rest of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right, then let's move iOS over. All right, so that's not perfect, but it looks pretty close. All right, so now it's lining up on the grid. That looks better to me. Cool. So next is this search bar. I want to call, and then you type in the country here and search. I'm just going to extend this artboard a bit so we have more room to play with. because one of the issues is the white space. I'm just gonna grab everything and just move it down. Cool. All right, so now this I want to call X. So first thing I'm noticing is it's not lined up on either side. I'm not quite sure. It may have been lined up on the previous grid. What I'll do is just extend the input just to make it full width, or maybe it shouldn't be full width. What if we made it smaller? What if we made it all in one row? Sort of like what we did here. I'm not loving that. Let's extend it all the way down. All right, so the type in the input seems a little large. Let's just change that font to Proxima Nova, soft, and let's make it a bit smaller. It doesn't need to take up the full width. A little bit of padding never hurt anybody. There we go, that looks good. Okay, make sure it's centered vertically and horizontally. That looks about right. So let me just bring this whole thing up. So we can have more spacing. Let's see, he had a divider line. So let me grab that. Make sure there's enough space on top and bottom. And then let's extend this divider all the way across. So let me zoom in and just extend the width. Cool. All right, so next we have this section. Let's make sure there's the same amount of width or padding on here as there is here. All right, so let's change this font to the Proxima Nova. I wish I just had that font on my system. That would be so much easier. All right, I'm going to copy that and then remove it from this one. And let's copy this, change the color. This one will make a medium font weight. All right, so talk more freely to anyone, anywhere, and then you enjoy HD calls, text, and more. All right, so let's change the color of this. So this one is like so. Let's make this one slightly lighter to add some visual hierarchy here. That looks pretty good. And then he has this view products button. So let's start by, let's make this a bit more prominent. Let's make it a bit bigger. There we go. Okay, and then let's just change this font. Let's make it bold, and then we don't need all caps, I don't think. And then finally, let's just center justify it. There we go. That looks pretty good. So it's a bit bigger and bolder. I like that. All right, so the next thing we have is this feature set. So he has it in a tabbed navigation style. Let's just grab all of this and bring it up a bit. So we could either fit this within this grid or we could extend it to the entire viewport. So I'm not the biggest fan of tabs. I feel like this maybe could be better laid out in maybe like a 3-column list of sorts. But I will just leave it as is for now and just see how we can play with it a bit. So what I'm thinking is this section right here, let's just extend this to the edge of the viewport. We'll extend this as well over. And then this one we will bring to the other edge. Maybe what we could do is something like this. Then let's change the font and let's left justify it. And then let's do the same for the subtitle as well. Left justify that. Let's align them both to the left. All right, so this we need to extend in a bit. Actually, same with this. So one thing is we have this big bold font and it's the same font size, both of these. So I feel like this should just be a bit smaller because it's still within the same section, but it's a different visual priority. So let's make this one a bit smaller. Same with this subtitle. Let's change this text. Oops, let's make it bold. And then this can be a bit smaller too. And actually this button can be quite a bit bigger. I don't think it needs that little drop shadow, so I'm just going to delete that. Because I don't really see that same styling anywhere else. Everywhere else he's using a flat design. And actually, let's add more emphasis to it. So instead of this, let's make a big, bold white button. That looks pretty good. I like it. All right, so one thing is this isn't vertically centered. So let's just bring that down slightly. Whoops. Maybe even a little bit more. That way it's vertically centered on the tab. Okay, so let's just change the font. Proxima Nova Soft. Maybe that could be bold and the subtitle be like so. That looks pretty good. I would probably do the same thing for all of these, but I'm not going to do that for this video because that will take a while because I've changed the font for each. So let's just move on. So let's see what we got. Zoom out and take a look at the overall composition. So I mean, this looks pretty good. We got some clear visual hierarchy, guiding your eye along. We got all the features. And I believe as you tab through, this would stay the same except the screen would change. All right, so let's take a look at the testimonials. So one thing I'm not so keen on is this repetition between the hearts and then the bullet points. I think it's because it's the same color. So what we could maybe do is just change the color of these bullets. So he's on this one, I assume. So these, maybe we could make a lighter gray color. Maybe even a little bit lighter. That looks better. All right, let's just add some spacing between all of this. That way we visually group things together. So this is visually grouped together. The title and the quote itself is grouped together. And then this navigation for the slider is grouped. All right, then let's just add the visual spacing between, or the padding between the top and the bottom. Let's grab this little line, bring it up. And just like before, I want to extend it all the way across. And let's bring it down to make sure that it's the same on top and bottom. All right, so now for the big section. And by big section, I mean the final call to action. So the final call to action is your last opportunity to get people to sign up because they've already gone through the page. So this is just one more reminder. So first off, let's just change this font. Proxima Nova Soft. Let's make it a bold font. There we go. So let's see. He has, what is his navigation? Features. Okay, so learn more, I guess, would go to features. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to grab this button and bring that down. So let's just duplicate that. So what I can do is just say learn more on one, and I'll say get started on the other. Let me just create a new button right here. That already has the fill, bring in the border radius. All right, let me change the font color to white. So that way it's bolder, and I'll just delete this other button. Delete these as well. And let's make sure this is centered. There we go. Cool, so the big bold get started, or this less bold learn more, I assume would go to the features page. All right, so this section I think should have more padding than the rest, just because I want to call attention to this call to action. So I'm going to add much more spacing between here and here. And then I'm going to extend up this footer to match the spacing on top. That looks pretty good. All right, so the last section is this footer. So the one thing I'm noticing is that this font is fairly large for this section. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, first off, shrink it down, because I don't think it needs to be nearly as large as the other stuff. And then let's just change this font, Proxima Nova Soft. Make it a bold font. And let's bring the font size up slightly. There we go. Font size up a bit to differentiate it between the links themselves. Cool. And then let me change this font as well. Wonder if this font could be white or if that would be, yeah, that would be unreadable. So maybe let's just make it a little bit lighter. That looks pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll bring it up, make sure there's some good padding on top and bottom, and then I'll just duplicate this and rewrite that stuff. So this would be company. All right, so I'm gonna hide the guides. This can be spaced out a bit more. Let's see, let's extend this one to the edge like so. And then I'm just going to visually do this. So it's not gonna be perfect, but it'll be close. So I'm distributing these based on the width of the links themselves. For example, partners has much longer links than the about section. All right, then finally, let's bring this up to match the top padding. And then finally we have this footer, which I think could be separate, maybe on this white background. So let me just change this font to the Proxima Nova Soft. Cool, and then let me bring this up. All right, so let's take a look at the overall composition. So the header is now more balanced because there's not that negative space on the left. We have a clearly defined visual hierarchy by making this bold font white, so it has more contrast between the subtitle. And we repositioned the photo itself to where it's not covering their eyes. Then we have this get on the app, we space those out. This we extended all the way across the entire wrapper, so all 3 columns. Overall, we gave more spacing and padding. This I extended to the full viewport and then changed the layout inside so it's horizontal instead of a vertical. Made much more emphasis on this section based on the spacing. And then just changed like the buttons and stuff. But overall, I think this is looking pretty good. So obviously this is just what I would do. David, you can feel free to take or leave any of these suggestions. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode.